Does this work? Okay, great. You know, there's nothing quite like having your slides flip and you don't have control of them. Thank you guys for being here today. We're going to talk about two things. Number one, that the capital markets are very open. They're very open today for pre-financing activity. They're very open today for expansions and repositionings. And they're very open today for new geographic locations. And we'll share a couple examples of where that's happening. The second piece of it, though, is what we're seeing with all of you. And that's that providers are moving forward. That if 2010 and 11 were a time of planning, 2012 we see you taking action. And originally the action was, what do I do to get my own house in order? What do I do to make sure my expenses are in line? What do I do, more importantly, to expand the revenue envelope? The second thing you've looked at is to say, all right, if my house is in order, now let me focus on how do I better serve a market that is changing. And that may be expansion into new areas, that may be repositioning some tired areas, or it may be starting to reach out and say there's some ancillary opportunities that we want to become involved with. Many of you have looked at home health care, have looked at home and community-based care, have looked at PACE models, have looked at hospice. And interestingly, what we see you doing in those areas is finding partners to work with and not trying to start it from scratch. But today we're going to focus on the capital markets and what's happening with some of the bricks and sticks opportunities. Methodist retirement communities out of the Woodlands, Texas. 5 communities, new CEO, new CFO in 2006, first got their group of communities in order and said, let's make sure each one has a plan and is tuned to the marketplace. But from there saying, now's the time for us to expand, to serve more people. They looked across East Texas and looked at 20 different markets and settled on Clear Springs, which is south of Houston, to say we want to focus on an area that has good growth, that has limited competition, as well as has an opportunity to serve a Methodist population. So they just financed with BANs, bond anticipation notes, moving forward to finance their pre-financed capital and are beginning pre-sales next month on their first new community in 25 years. Up in front of you here is Redstone Village. Here's an example of people doing things in biteable chunks. 3 million, 5 million, 7 million chunks, opened in 2005 and financing next week on phase 5. And the interesting thing about moving on to phase 5 was when we closed phase 4 with them, which was the addition of 36 independent living that opened next month, they said, what is phase 5 through phase 12? Where should we focus? And we sat at the closing table and discussed the art of the possible. And the top of their list was more skilled nursing, a core skill set. And sure enough, 20 skilled nursing beds became available, and they were able to act on it, purchase them within 2 months of them becoming available, and finance it within 6 months of them becoming available. That was that planning and a bias towards action. Also showing up here is a new location. New locations are moving forward too. Today we financed Barrington, a community in Carmel, Indiana. It was sponsored by Mayflower, a new startup not-for-profit, led by people who were versed in senior living. But they found that a startup not-for-profit is tough to finance in today's markets. The capital markets want to know the sponsor is credible, that you have a good development team, and that all of us have skin in the game. So they reached out in 2 directions. The first was to the local hospital system, St. Vincent's, to form an affiliation there to have more credibility in that marketplace. The second was to Senior Quality Lifestyles, to be a partner in the financing and the ownership and the management, a group that had done 5 communities but never outside of Texas. Last month, it financed at 7.1% and 82% pre-sold. Now, when we look across these, we do see some common tenets. The first is the sponsor, the sponsor, the sponsor. The capital markets and our consumers want to know that the sponsor is credible, that you have legs, that you'll deliver on the promise when they've given you all of this capital and are trusting you to care for themselves or their parents or their aunts or their uncles. The second piece of it is a credible development team. Have you done it before? Has each member of your team succeeded in a post-2009 world? Because as all you know, it's very different than how we acted in 2007. And finally, they want to know all of us on the team have skin in the game. No longer are any of us allowed to say, hey, financing's done, let's move on. They want to know the sponsor, the professionals, and the pre-finance folks all have skin in the game to achieve milestones that mean we're serving our residents well. You know, we thank each of you for what you do every day. It's an interesting business we get to be in, but it's one of the few businesses that at the end of the day, you get to say, we change people's lives. Thank you all very much.